Dad missed my wedding because my stepmom threatened to leave him. Imagine your dad choosing his new wife over your wedding. Get ready for a shocking story of family drama and betrayal. Hi, I'm Sarah, 33, and I'm going to try to explain this without completely losing it, but I make no promises. My parents got divorced when I was 8, and my dad remarried Diana when I was 12. Diana had a daughter, Chloe, who was 10 at the time. From day one, it was clear that Chloe was Diana's precious little princess, and I was just the kid who came with a package deal. Not that my dad seemed to notice, because he was so busy trying to make Diana happy and being the perfect stepdad to Chloe that he kind of forgot he already had a daughter. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I was the easiest kid to deal with, because the divorce was hard on me and I acted out sometimes. But I was 12 years old and my world had been turned upside down. Suddenly, I had to share my dad with two new people who made it very clear that I was the outsider. Diana never said anything directly mean to me, but she had this way of making comments that sounded nice on the surface, but were actually cutting. Like, she'd say things like, "Oh, Chloe is so naturally graceful. Some girls just have it, and some girls have to work harder," when I was struggling with things. Or, "Chloe has such a gentle spirit. She never raises her voice or gets upset like some children do," whenever I got frustrated about something. And my dad just let it happen, because he was so focused on keeping Diana happy that he didn't want to rock the boat by standing up for me. Whenever I tried to talk to him about how Diana and Chloe treated me, he'd say I was being too sensitive, or that I needed to try harder to be part of the family. It made me feel like I was going crazy, because I could see what was happening, but nobody else would acknowledge it. Chloe got everything she wanted, and I got the leftovers. When we went on family vacations, Diana would plan activities that Chloe loved. And when I said I didn't want to do something, they'd make me feel guilty for being difficult. When it came to things like school events or recitals, my dad would move heaven and earth to make sure he was at Chloe's stuff, but he'd miss mine if Diana had something else planned. The worst part was that he'd always have an excuse ready, like work was busy, or there was a family obligation, or something came up last minute. I started to realize that I was never the priority, but I kept hoping things would get better as we all got older. And I tried so hard to be the perfect daughter and to get along with Diana and Chloe, because I thought if I just tried hard enough, my dad would see that I was worth fighting for. I got good grades, I didn't get in trouble, and I tried to be interested in the things Chloe liked, even though we had nothing in common. I swallowed my hurt feelings over and over again, because I loved my dad and I wanted to have a relationship with him. The thing is that Chloe and I were never close, even though everyone pretended we were sisters. As we got older, it became more obvious that we were just two people who happened to live in the same house sometimes. She was into all the girly stuff, like makeup, shopping, and cheerleading, and I was more of a tomboy who liked sports, being outdoors, and reading. That was fine, because not everyone has to be best friends with their step-siblings, but Diana acted like it was somehow my fault that we weren't closer. When Chloe graduated high school, Diana threw her this huge party and invited everyone they knew. My dad gave this speech about how proud he was of Chloe and how she was going to do amazing things in college. I remember sitting there thinking about how, when I graduated, he took me out to dinner at a casual restaurant and called it a day. I told myself it didn't matter because I didn't need a big party anyway, and I was going to college on a scholarship, so I was doing fine on my own. But it still hurt. College was actually good for me, because I got some distance from all the family drama and I could just focus on my own life without constantly feeling like I was competing for my dad's attention. I made real friends who actually liked me for who I was. I got involved in activities I cared about, and I started to feel like maybe I was worth something after all. I still talked to my dad regularly and visited during breaks, but I wasn't living there full time anymore, so the dynamic was different. Chloe went to college too, but she struggled with being away from home and ended up transferring to a school closer to home after her first year because she missed her mom too much. Diana acted like this was perfectly normal and healthy, and my dad supported the decision completely. I remember thinking that if I had wanted to transfer schools because I was homesick, they would have told me to toughen up and stick it out. After college, I moved to a different city for work, and I built a life for myself that I was proud of. I had a job I liked, good friends, and eventually I met Mark, who is now my fiancé, and honestly, The best thing that ever happened to me. Mark gets me in a way that I don't think anyone in my family ever has. And he makes me feel like I'm enough just the way I am. Which sounds cheesy, but it's true. When Mark and I got engaged, I was so happy and excited to start planning our wedding. And I called my dad right away to tell him the news. He seemed happy for me and said all the right things about how he couldn't wait to meet Mark and how he was excited to walk me down the aisle. For a minute, I felt like maybe we could have the father-daughter relationship I'd always wanted. But then Chloe got engaged 6 months later, and suddenly it was like my wedding didn't exist anymore. Every conversation with my dad turned into updates about Chloe's wedding planning, how Diana was helping her plan this elaborate celebration, and how they were looking at venues that cost more than my entire wedding budget. I tried to be happy for Chloe because getting married is supposed to be exciting, but it was hard not to notice that my dad seemed way more invested in her wedding than mine. Chloe's wedding was last fall, and it was everything Diana had dreamed of. My dad walked Chloe down the aisle and gave another one of his speeches about how proud he was, how beautiful she looked, and how lucky her new husband was. I sat there watching and trying to be happy for them, but also feeling this sick jealousy because I knew my wedding wasn't going to be anything like that. Not that I wanted the same kind of wedding, because Mark and I are more low-key people, and we're paying for most of it ourselves, so we're doing something smaller and more intimate. But it would have been nice to feel like my dad was half as excited about my big day as he was about Chloe's. I kept telling myself that it didn't matter, because the important thing was marrying Mark and starting our life together, not having some fancy party. So we set our wedding date for the spring. I started planning everything, and my dad said he was looking forward to it, and that he couldn't wait to walk me down the aisle. I started to get excited because I thought maybe this would be our moment, you know, like maybe walking me down the aisle would mean something to him, and he'd realize that I was his daughter too, and that our relationship mattered. But then 2 months ago, everything fell apart. I still can't quite believe what happened, because it was so much worse than anything I could have imagined. I called my dad to talk about some wedding details and to confirm that he was planning to walk me down the aisle. He got quiet on the phone for a long time, which should have been my first clue that something was wrong. Finally, he said that he needed to talk to me about something, that it was complicated, and he didn't know how to say it. I'm sitting there thinking maybe he's worried about money, or maybe he's having health problems, or something serious. But then he tells me that Diana doesn't want him to come to my wedding at all, and that she's threatened to leave him if he shows up. I literally could not process what he was saying at first because it was so insane. I asked him to repeat it, and he said that Diana feels like me having a wedding so soon after Chloe is trying to steal Chloe's thunder, and that it's disrespectful to their family. I'm like, what the heck does that even mean? Chloe got married 6 months ago, had her big fancy wedding, and now I'm not allowed to get married because it might somehow diminish her special day that already happened. But it gets worse, because then my dad says that Diana also thinks I'm being manipulative by asking him to walk me down the aisle because I'm trying to force him to choose between his families and put him in an impossible position. I lost it at that point because I couldn't believe what I was hearing, like I'm his actual biological daughter, and asking my father to walk me down the aisle at my wedding is somehow manipulative. I told him that was completely insane, that Diana was being ridiculous and controlling, and that he needed to stand up to her and tell her that he was going to his daughter's wedding, whether she liked it or not. He got defensive and said that I didn't understand how hard this was for him, that Diana was just trying to protect her daughter, and that maybe we could find a compromise. A compromise? Like, what exactly was the compromise supposed to be? That he would come to my wedding, but not walk me down the aisle? That he would walk me halfway down the aisle and then leave? That I should postpone my wedding for another year so it wouldn't be too close to Chloe's? I couldn't believe he was even suggesting that there was room for negotiation here. And then he said the thing that really broke my heart, which was that he hoped I would understand that his marriage to Diana was important to him and that he couldn't risk losing her over this. Like he was basically telling me that his wife was more important to him than his daughter and that he was choosing her over me without even trying to fight for our relationship. I hung up on him because I was so angry and hurt that I couldn't even form words. I spent the rest of the day crying and trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. Mark was amazing and just held me while I fell apart. He told me that we'd figure it out together, and that no matter what happened with my dad, our wedding was still going to be perfect because we'd be getting married. But I couldn't stop thinking about how my dad had walked Chloe down the aisle just 6 months earlier, how proud he looked, and how he'd given that speech about how much she meant to him. Now he was telling me that he couldn't even show up to my wedding because his wife didn't want him there. I realized that this wasn't really about Diana at all. This was about the fact that my dad had never really fought for me, chosen me, or made me feel like I was as important as his new family. I called him back the next day. I was calmer, but I was also done pretending that this was okay. I told him that if he chose not to come to my wedding, then he was choosing to end our relationship permanently, and that I wouldn't keep begging him to be my father. He started crying and saying that he loved me, and that this was killing him, but that he didn't know what else to do. I told him that he knew exactly what to do. He just didn't want to do it because it would be hard. He kept saying that he hoped someday I would understand, that he never wanted things to be this way, and that maybe after some time passed, we could work things out. I told him that there wasn't going to be any working things out because I was done being the daughter who got the leftovers, who had to compete for scraps of attention, and who was always expected to be understanding when he chose other people over me. I told him that he had made his choice. Now, he had to live with it, and that after my wedding, I didn't want him to contact me anymore. He was begging me not to do this, saying that I was being too extreme and that cutting him out of my life wasn't going to solve anything. But I was past the point of caring about his feelings, because he clearly hadn't cared about mine for years. The worst part is that I think some part of me always knew this day would come, because he'd been showing me who he was for years, and I just kept hoping he would change. But when he walked Chloe down the aisle and then told me he couldn't do the same for me, it was like the final proof that I had never been as important to him as I wanted to believe. So I told all my wedding vendors that there would be no father-daughter dance, no one walking me down the aisle, and that it would just be me walking myself down to marry the man I love. Honestly, once I made that decision, I felt this huge weight lift off my shoulders because I realized that I didn't need my dad's approval or presence to have a perfect wedding day. Mark's dad offered to walk me down the aisle, and that was really sweet, but I decided that I wanted to walk alone. My mom has been incredibly supportive through all of this. She's helping me with last-minute wedding planning, and she told me that she's proud of me for standing up for myself and not letting my dad treat me like I don't matter. She also said that she's not surprised this happened, because my dad has always been a people pleaser who goes along with whatever makes his life easier, even if it means hurting the people he's supposed to love most. The wedding was in 3 weeks, and I was genuinely excited about marrying Mark and starting our life together. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still hurt and angry about the whole situation with my dad. Some of my relatives have been calling and texting, trying to get me to reconcile with my dad before the wedding. They keep saying that family is family and that I'll regret not having him there. But I don't think they understand that he stopped being family to me the minute he chose Diana's feelings over his own daughter's wedding. I'm tired of everyone acting like I should be the bigger person and forgive him when he's the one who created this whole situation. The thing that really gets me is that he kept texting me these long messages about how much he loves me, how sorry he is, and how he never wanted things to turn out this way. But he still hadn't said that he'd changed his mind about coming to the wedding, like he wanted me to forgive him and maintain a relationship with him. But he wasn't willing to actually do anything different. I can't keep accepting apologies that don't come with changed behavior. I blocked his number last week because I was tired of getting his messages and having them ruin my day. I know that probably seems cold, but I needed to focus on my wedding and my future with Mark, instead of constantly being dragged back into drama with my dad. Honestly, the silence has been kind of peaceful, because I'm not constantly waiting for him to text me, or wondering if he's going to change his mind at the last minute. My bridal shower was that weekend. My mom threw it for me. All my friends came, and Mark's mom and sisters were there too. It was full of people who actually loved me and wanted to celebrate with me. So I guess what I was asking is whether I was being too harsh by cutting my dad out of my life permanently over this, because some days I felt completely confident in my decision, And other days, I wondered if I was throwing away a relationship that could maybe be repaired someday. I can't believe I'm back here already. But so much has happened since my original post, and I need to get this out of my head because I'm honestly losing my mind right now. Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post and told me I wasn't crazy for being upset about this situation. It really helped me feel less alone. So my wedding was last weekend, and it was absolutely perfect. Even though the days leading up to it were completely insane, and I'm still processing everything that happened. I thought I was done with my dad drama, but apparently, the universe had other plans for me. The bridal shower 2 weeks ago was amazing and exactly what I needed. Just me and all the women in my life who actually love and support me, having a great time and celebrating. My mom was so happy, and Mark's family has basically adopted me as their own, which makes me feel really good about the family I'm marrying into. No drama, no stress, just pure joy and excitement about the wedding. But then last Monday, exactly 1 week before my wedding, my phone started ringing at like 7 o'clock in the morning. It was my dad calling from a number I didn't recognize because I had blocked his regular number. He told me that he had left Diana, that he was staying at a hotel, and that he wanted to come to my wedding and walk me down the aisle after all. I'm standing there in my kitchen in my pajamas, trying to process this information because it was literally the last thing I expected to hear. I asked him what happened and why he changed his mind. Apparently, Diana had been getting worse and worse about the whole wedding situation. She kept making comments about how selfish I was being and how I was trying to ruin Chloe's marriage by having my wedding so soon after hers, which makes absolutely no sense, but whatever. Then she started saying that if my dad really loved her and Chloe, he would choose them over me permanently and cut me out of his life completely. She told him that he needed to call me, tell me that he never wanted to see me again, that I wasn't welcome in their house anymore, and that he was choosing his real family over me. Apparently, that was finally the line in the sand for my dad, because he realized that Diana wasn't just asking him to miss my wedding. She was asking him to destroy his relationship with me forever. He said that he told Diana he couldn't do that I was his daughter no matter what, and that he needed to find a way to be at my wedding. She completely lost it and started screaming at him that he was choosing me over her, and that she was done being married to someone who didn't put his wife first. Then she told him to get out of the house and that she was filing for divorce. Part of me was happy that he finally stood up for me, but I was also really confused because this was literally 6 days before my wedding, and I had already made peace with walking myself down the aisle and not having him there. I told him that, and he started crying harder, begging me to let him come to the wedding, and saying that he knew he had messed up, but that he wanted to make it right. I didn't know what to say, because I had spent weeks preparing myself emotionally for him not to be there. And now suddenly, he wanted to show up at the last minute, after I had already grieved the loss of having my dad at my wedding. I was angry because it felt like he was only choosing me now because Diana had made it impossible for him to choose both, not because he actually realized that I should have been his priority all along. I told him I needed time to think about it, and that I would call him back. Then I spent the next few hours talking to Mark and my mom about what I should do. Mark said it was completely my decision, and that he would support whatever I chose. My mom said that she thought I should be careful about letting my dad back in only to have him hurt me again if things didn't work out with Diana. But then I talked to my therapist, who I had started seeing after all this drama began, and she helped me think through what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. I realized that despite everything that had happened, I did still want my dad at my wedding if he was genuinely choosing to be there because he loved me, and not just because his other option had been taken away. So I called him back and told him that he could come to the wedding, but that we needed to have a serious conversation about our relationship and what had led to this point. He agreed to meet me for coffee the next day to talk through everything. The conversation was really hard because I had to tell him how much he had hurt me over the years, and how his choosing Diana and Chloe over me had damaged our relationship long before the wedding drama started. He listened and cried, and admitted that he had failed me as a father, and that he had been so focused on trying to make his new marriage work that he had neglected his relationship with me. He said that he realized when Diana asked him to cut me out of his life completely that he had already lost so much time with me, and that he couldn't bear the thought of losing me forever. He apologized for not standing up for me sooner and for making me feel like I wasn't as important as Chloe and Diana. It wasn't a perfect conversation, and I don't think one talk can undo years of hurt and disappointment. But it felt like the first time in a long time that my dad was really seeing me and acknowledging how his actions had affected me. I decided that I wanted him at my wedding because despite everything, he's still my dad, and I love him. So he walked me down the aisle last Saturday, and it was emotional, complicated, and perfect all at the same time. I was nervous right up until the moment it happened because I was worried he might change his mind again. But he was there. He looked proud and happy, and he told me he loved me before he gave me away to Mark. The wedding itself was everything I dreamed it would be and more. Mark looked so handsome. The weather was perfect. All our friends and family were there celebrating with us, and for the first time in months, I felt completely happy and peaceful. We danced, laughed, ate cake, and I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. My dad gave a short speech during the reception. He talked about how proud he was of the woman I had become, and how sorry he was that it had taken him so long to realize what was most important in life. He said that he was grateful I had given him another chance to be the father I deserved, and that he was committed to rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't the same as if none of this drama had ever happened, because I think there's always going to be a part of me that remembers how he almost chose Diana over me. But it felt like maybe we could start fresh and build something better together. But then yesterday, I found out that Diana and Chloe have been telling everyone in their family and friend group that I broke up my dad's marriage and that I'm a selfish, manipulative person who couldn't stand that Chloe had a beautiful wedding, so I had to ruin her family to make myself feel better. Apparently, they're saying that I gave my dad an ultimatum, forced him to choose between me and Diana, and that I'm the reason their marriage fell apart. I'm so angry I can barely see straight, because that's not what happened at all. They're making me out to be the villain, when Diana was the one who demanded that my dad cut me out of his life permanently. Now I'm worried that other people in my extended family are going to believe their version of events, and think that I'm some kind of home wrecker who destroyed a marriage. My dad called me when he found out what they were saying. He was furious, and said he was going to set the record straight with everyone. But I told him not to bother, because I don't want to get into a he said, she said situation with Diana and Chloe. I just want to focus on my new marriage, building a life with Mark, and not get dragged into more drama. But it's hard not to feel hurt and frustrated that even after everything, Diana and Chloe are still trying to make me the bad guy and paint themselves as the victims in this situation. I keep wondering if my dad is going to stick by his decision to choose me when Diana and Chloe are putting pressure on our extended family to take sides. Mark thinks I should just focus on our marriage and not worry about what Diana and Chloe are saying, because the people who matter know the truth, and the people who don't know me well enough to see through their lies aren't worth worrying about. I think he's probably right, but it's still hard to know that people might think badly of me based on things that aren't true. Anyway, I'm married now, and that's what matters most. But I wanted to update you all on how everything turned out because so many of you were invested in my story and gave me such good advice. I wasn't planning to post another update, but things have gotten so much weirder and more complicated since my last post that I feel like I need to share what's been happening because I honestly don't know if I'm handling this situation correctly anymore. So it's been about 6 weeks since my wedding, and Mark and I have been enjoying married life and trying to settle into our new normal together. My dad and I have been slowly working on rebuilding our relationship, and it's been going better than I expected. Like, we've been talking on the phone regularly, and he's been making an effort to be more present and supportive. But last week, I got a text from Chloe asking if we could meet for coffee to talk. I was so shocked that I literally stared at my phone for like 10 minutes, trying to figure out if I was hallucinating. Chloe and I haven't spoken since before my wedding, and I honestly thought I would never hear from her again after all the drama with Diana and my dad. I showed Mark the text, and he thought it might be some kind of trap, or that Chloe was going to try to manipulate me somehow, but I was curious about what she wanted to say, so I agreed to meet her near my house. I'm glad I did, because what she told me completely changed my understanding of everything that had happened. Chloe looked terrible when I saw her. She started by apologizing for how her mom had treated me over the years and for the wedding situation, which was not at all what I was expecting to hear from her. Then she told me that her mom had been lying to both me and my dad about what the other person was saying and doing, and that Diana had been manipulating the situation to try to drive a permanent wedge between me and my dad. Apparently, Diana had told Chloe that I'd been saying terrible things about their family and that I was trying to turn my dad against them, which wasn't true at all. But here's the really messed up part that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Chloe said that Diana had been planning to divorce my dad anyway because she had been having an affair with some guy from her work for over a year, and that she was using the wedding drama as an excuse to end the marriage without having to admit to cheating. According to Chloe, Diana had been looking for a reason to make my dad the bad guy so that she could leave him and take half of everything without people knowing that she was the one who had destroyed the marriage by having an affair. When I announced my engagement, she saw an opportunity to create a situation where my dad would have to choose between his families. And no matter what he chose, she could use it as justification for ending their marriage. Chloe said that if my dad had chosen not to come to my wedding, Diana would have told everyone that he was a terrible father who abandoned his daughter. When he chose to come to my wedding instead, she got to play the victim and say that he chose me over his wife. Either way, Diana got to be the wronged party instead of the cheating spouse. I felt sick listening to all of this because it meant that Diana had been playing games with my relationship with my dad for months and using my wedding as a weapon in her plan to leave him. Chloe said that she had just found out about the affair and about Diana's manipulation when she overheard her mom on the phone with the other man talking about how perfectly everything had worked out. Chloe was crying while she told me all of this, and she said that she felt terrible for not seeing what her mom was doing and for not standing up for me over the years when Diana was treating me badly. She said that she had always known her mom didn't like me, but she thought it was just normal step-family tension. And then Chloe said something that really got to me, which was that she had always been jealous of my relationship with my dad, because even though Diana tried to make him favor Chloe, she could tell that he loved me in a way that was different because I was his biological daughter. She said that Diana had been jealous of that too, and that's why she had worked so hard to drive a wedge between us. I didn't know what to say to any of this because I was so angry, hurt, and confused. Like I had spent months and years blaming myself for not being good enough to earn my dad's love and attention when the whole time Diana had been actively working to destroy our relationship. I felt bad for Chloe too, because she was finding out that her mom was not the person she thought she was. Chloe asked if I could forgive her for not speaking up sooner and for believing her mom's lies about me. She said that she wanted to try to have a real relationship with me now that we both knew the truth. Honestly, I don't know how I feel about that, because Chloe and I have never been close, and I'm not sure if we can build something from nothing. But I appreciate that she came forward with the truth. I told my dad everything that Chloe had told me, and he was devastated because he realized that Diana had been manipulating him for years and using me as a pawn in her game. He said that so many things made sense now, like why Diana would get upset whenever he spent time with me, and why she always seemed to have a crisis whenever I had something important happening in my life. My dad has filed for divorce, and he's trying to protect his assets from Diana, since she was the one who cheated and destroyed the marriage. But apparently, she's claiming that he abandoned the marriage when he chose to come to my wedding. It's all really messy and complicated legal stuff that I don't fully understand. But basically, Diana is still trying to make herself the victim, even though she's the one who was having an affair. The whole situation has made me realize that I was right to be angry about how I was treated over the years, but that I was blaming the wrong person for some of it. My dad definitely should have stood up for me more, and he should have seen what Diana was doing. But she was actively working to manipulate both of us and drive us apart. I'm trying to figure out how to move forward with my relationship with my dad because on one hand, I'm glad we're rebuilding our connection, but on the other hand, I'm still hurt that he let Diana manipulate him for so long and that he almost chose her over me. I feel like I need time to process all of this new information before I can decide how much I want him to be involved in my life going forward. Mark has been amazing through all of this. He keeps reminding me that I don't have to make any big decisions right now about my relationships with my dad or Chloe, and that I can take as much time as I need to figure out what I want. My therapist has been helpful too, in helping me work through all the complicated emotions I'm having about this whole mess. I guess what I'm wondering now is whether I should give my dad and Chloe more of a chance, now that I know Diana was manipulating the situation, or whether the damage that was done over the years is too much to overcome, regardless of who was really to blame. So I guess I'm asking for advice again about whether I should be more open to rebuilding these relationships now that I know the truth about what was really happening, or whether I should be more cautious about letting people back into my life who hurt me, even if they were being manipulated too. This story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger and more painful than you can imagine. If this wild ride resonated with you, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below.